What's up, everybody? It's Gary B, and this is the Sports Card Strategy Show, because you know this, there is no off-season.
No off-season! When you get into this game, the reason why you pay someone like Paul Hickey to get your sports card strategy together is because when you're starting out, you need perspective, you need wisdom, you need insights. And so he's been around the track enough times where he can actually coach you up and guide you. Doesn't mean he's going to take you to the promised land tomorrow, but you now have a coach by your side that can advise and kind of even create these pathways where you can get the education yourself. And that's a lot better than thugging it out on your own.
What? The kids better buy my rookie card now, because after this year, the price ain't coming down.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Paul Hickey. It's time to sit back, listen, learn, and earn with me on the Sports Card Strategy Show. No off season. Sports Card Strategy Show fam. What's up? Paul Hickey here with Lefty McKee. On today's show, we're going to discuss eBay buy it now or best offer, sports card selling strategy, when to switch to an eBay auction. I was right about Shedeur Sanders. Why this is the week you should probably stop buying football cards. How to get your grading submissions moving faster, Lefty. I figured out something with CGC and PSA that we're going to talk about. And then why buying Sandy Koufax cards right now could be a solid move. Lefty, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. I hope the audio is good, because literally like 2 seconds before our intro ended, my camera switched and I was like, oh my God. But then we slid in right in time. We're here. We're ready to rock and roll.
Sounding good. If you want to spend around $300 for the year to make 10K profit, or 40K as one of our premium members has a testimonial at nooffseason.com. Join nooffseason.com now. Get our tried and true strategies and tools to help you mitigate risks and maximize wins and profit. Use the promo code NOOFFSEASON to save 20%. Now we help you make money flipping sports cards. Okay, so to that point, let's get right into it. eBay buy it now or best offer selling strategy. Lefty, this is something we talk throughout the year about, not only on the Sports Card Strategy Show, but there's a lot of lessons at Sports Card School at nooffseason.com. We answer a lot of questions on the premium podcast at nooffseason.com about how to list and sell on eBay, because we don't want you to miss selling markers. We don't want you guys to miss opportunities to sell your cards for maximum profit. So I have some examples, and I want to share with you my examples over literally this past week, where I have had some wins over the past week. And so instead of just talking about my wins, I want to talk strategically about how I got those wins so that I can help all of you. So one win was I bought a Victor Wembanyama 2023 Topps Chrome autograph, rookie autograph. It's a base auto. I bought it raw on eBay back in probably February, and I got a PSA 10. So one thing that we talk about is raw to grade off of eBay and getting PSA 10s. It is very possible. You have to go through the process that we outline at nooffseason.com. We talk about it on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We're not here to talk about that process today, but there is a process for that. You use our card analyzer and predictor tool, centering tool, all that good stuff to help you increase your chances of buying raw cards off of eBay that will grade well. So this one gemmed, and all into the card, I was about $1,000 and maybe $30 or $40 into the card. So less than $1,100 into the card. Wemby then proceeded to get injured, so I didn't have the selling marker that I thought I might have in May during the playoffs, but I held the card. I didn't bring it to any card shows because I knew I would get lowballed. And coming out of the National, I realized that the price on this card was about double what I was into it for. And so that's part of the process that I want to outline for everybody today is it's like, when should you list the card? I don't even think you should list the card until you've checked comps over and over again and understand when the comps are dictating that you're going to be up enough for you to make a profit on the card. So I went ahead and listed the card. I listed it at $2,200, proceeded to get an offer. But the way I got the offer was unique. It had never happened to me before. Wondering if this has happened to any of you. I got the offer through just a message. I know that that's happened. That's happened, right? Like you'll get, because here's what I did. I didn't put or best offer. This was just a buy it now. So the buy it now was 2,200, but I was like firm on the 2,200. So there was no offer. But when the buyer messaged me about it, eBay, in its everlasting effort to keep people on eBay and not getting off of the eBay platform to try to make deals to avoid the eBay fees, eBay has a feature. I don't know if it's new or not, but it was new to me. Within the message window, it said, click here to make the offer. And the offer amount was like basically the amount that we were talking about. And so the offer amount was $2,050. So $2,050. So I came down off of my asking price, $150. I always do the math ahead of time. So I knew I was going to be up on this. Buyer accepted the offer, paid right away. So the order total was $2,257.48 because they add sales tax. And then after the sales tax comes out of it and the transaction fees come out of it and the shipping comes off of it, my total order earnings, $1,722.03. So I profited all in, total net profit, $710 on this Wemby card. So it was a big win for me. And the reason why I wanted to call this out on the Sports Card Strategy Show is because it's a different selling strategy. It's not an auction. It's not necessarily just throwing up a buy it now or best offer at double. I think a lot of people will just double the current comps and throw out a buy it now or best offer and then field offers. Well, that can get kind of crappy because then you might get really crappy offers, or you might not get any offers because astute buyers understand that you've doubled the price of that card. So in this scenario, it was simply waiting until it was up. But then instead of auctioning it, I said, okay, let's just put it up in a buy it now, no best offer. Got an offer through the message, but then instead of having to like dink around and like relist it in a weird way, eBay has this new nice feature where it's just send an offer. Because eBay, I guess AI or something is picking up on the messaging and saying send an offer. So I sent an offer for $2,050, got it sold, $710 net profit. Now, Lefty, that's big for me because otherwise I was waiting until May to auction it off. So now here I am almost a full year before next May, probably, 8 or 9 months before next May comes around. Now I'm in a situation on August 11th where I've got my profit for this card. So I was pretty pumped about that. So I've got two more examples, two more things I want to talk about, but let's pause there. Let's bring in Lefty McKee. What's your take on this, Lefty?
I think it's perfectly executed, like best case scenario for you. eBay's been improving so many of their add-ins and what their site is capable of. And I mean, we talked to Mike the other day and they just are working really hard about making this an increased user-friendly platform. And it's just it doesn't shock me that this is something that you can do now, is that in the messaging feature, you can go ahead and do that. Previously, I've had some chats like get auto redacted because they think that you're trying to sell off the platform and stuff like that. But I haven't even had problems with that recently either. I'm just really impressed. And I think also with your play, it's a great time to get out of Wemby. And we'll talk about, I have a couple basketball cards I want to talk about later, but I think getting out of Wemby for that capital to be moved back into some other plays right now could be really cool.
I think it was I was surprised that card had gone up so much, because at one point it had gone down to maybe 1,500, and I wasn't going to really sit there and take 1,300 in a card show, or 1,200 in a card show, or even really 1,500 on eBay, because 1,500 on eBay is going to be about the same as 1,200 to 1,250 at a card show. So I didn't want to sit there and go, okay, well, I can only make 20% profit on this card. So yeah, I'm really thankful that the market bounced back for this particular Wemby card. I think it's interesting because in theory, Wemby's a good buy right now because no one should be thinking about him. But I think because he's one of the most exciting players in the NBA, and everyone's still anticipating him having a great career, and there's still so much hype around him. We've already started to see his prices come back, and so this is an example of that. And yeah, I was really happy to, especially since I picked up a couple big Wemby cards at the National. I was excited to get out of one that I had profit margin in and get some profit back into it, because that's the name of the game. So now this other one might shock you a little bit, because we just talked about it last week. You and I just bought our Santa Claus cards. And so I did what I said what I was going to do. This is a different eBay offer example than the last one with Wemby. I listed Santa, the 1989 Santa Claus promo pro set card in PSA 10 for $800. The last sale was right around where we bought ours at the National, $475. I think the last sale on eBay, last comp, was maybe even $5 or $6 under that. But we knew that around Christmas, this card could go up to $800. So I listed it for $800, and I had OBO on it. So I was willing to accept some offers, and I had 8 watchers. And so I have a lot of cards up on eBay right now in buy it now, some of them with offers, some of them without offers. And it had 8 watchers. And so when you get even one watcher, eBay gives you the ability to send an offer to that buyer. But if you have multiple watchers, you can simultaneously send the offer to all the buyers. Now, what's cool about this is you can accept offers. And if the buyer doesn't pay and somebody else comes in that you sent an offer to with a better offer and pays, then it's like the one that you accepted snoozed and lost, and the one that paid first gets it. And so this kind of happened with Santa. I sent an offer for 5% off, which is probably going to be around $725, something like that. And I got a couple counter offers. The highest one was $649. So I wanted to walk everybody through this, because this is what I do, and this is what I want everybody to do. When you get an offer on eBay, I want you to take that total price and basically multiply it by 0.8, because that's going to be a conservative estimate of the fees that are going to come out of the total purchase price. And you're probably not going to get 20% taken out. But if you go by 0.8, basically what you're doing is you're saying, in the worst case scenario of fees coming out of this card on eBay, am I still going to profit where I want to profit? So what I did with Santa was I said, I'm going to go 649 times 0.8, which is 519. So before I accepted the offer, I had to ask myself the question, am I okay with a $46 total net profit right now? And the answer was yes, because I really don't want to hold on to Santa. Like, I bought Santa with Lefty at the National with the intention of selling Santa. Do I want to wait till Christmas as a worst case scenario? Sure, that was the play. But do I really want to wait till Christmas? Not really. So I pulled the trigger. Now, I actually ended up netting $564.70 after fees. So I actually profited $89.70 on Santa. So you might be saying, Paul, that's a little impatient. Why didn't you hold out for $800? Well, I would say, here's what I did. I walked past a dealer table with Lefty, had a good conversation with a guy, and made $90. It's basically what happened. So Santa's going to be gone. He's printed out the shipping label, got him on my desk right now. Santa's gone. He's off to the authenticator, and I made $90 on Santa. So pretty excited about that. Lefty, before we go to my final eBay sale to start the show, what do you think about this scenario with Santa?
It doesn't surprise me that Santa didn't make it to December for you. I mean, Santa in July or Santa in August or whatever definitely seemed more a Paul Hickey play. Mine's currently up for $7.99 too. So if somebody wants to come in and pay me early as well, that would be great. But I think it makes sense for you, one, because this wasn't in your top 5 athletes. You know, I basically talked you into buying the second one of the 2 that he offered us. And it makes sense that you were just like, yeah, I mean, the money and the play makes sense, but it's Santa, right? And I'm like, trust me, it'll work. And then you were just like, bang, it worked. And it worked way, way, way before you expected it to work. You know, I mean,
it definitely worked. It was a great play.
We're 4 months ahead of time, so great job.
Yeah. And I think our guy, Mike, that we talked to, the dealer, I think he's okay with a 649 comp. I mean, I think,
Especially in August.
yeah, 649 comp. I mean, I think that my sale actually helps Mike. For those of you who didn't listen to last week's show, go back and listen to last week's show. Lefty and I kind of walk through the Santa story of the consideration of buying it from the dealer and and what the dealer's strategy was in selling it to us. And we kind of had this little unofficial agreement that like how we would sell these so that they could basically be valued at what they should be valued at. And so 649 comp in August, I think Mike will feel good about that. I feel good about
Absolutely.
it.
I feel good about it having another one. So
yeah, it helps you out too. So there you go. So the other thing I wanted to talk about in terms of buy it now and is when to switch to an auction. I think this is critical because I think a lot of times we set it and forget it. And that's a losing strategy. If you don't forget it, basically is what I'm saying, because I have I have 3 Arch Manning cards listed right now for buy it now or best offer. And there's a lot of watchers. I've sent offers, that kind of thing. And I really am going to probably need to switch these to auctions early on in the college football season. Now, Arch is going to be a tough one because he's got a very tough matchup to open the season. He plays against the defending national champions, Ohio State. Now, there's a ton of hype around Arch Manning. I think we were obviously right about, we started talking about buying Arch Manning like literally 2 years ago, like at the end of 2022. So probably more than 2 years ago, I was talking about Arch Manning and his card, like when are his cards coming out? And we've documented like almost every single Arch Manning card that's ever come out. And we've talked about it and whether or not it's a buy. And most of them have been buys. And I've made a lot of money on Arch Manning. So I feel good about the Arch Manning call overall, regardless of how he comes out and does in his first year as a starter. The mission has been accomplished on Arch Manning, but I need to finish the play, right? So I think a lot of times we need to look at the calendar and go, what do I have listed in a buy it now? And am I going to need to switch that to an auction? And what are these cards going for, right? Because sometimes you might be screwing yourself by having a card listed too low in a buy it now. And sometimes you might be screwing yourself by having a card listed too high in a buy it now. And you still could have made money on it by switching it to an auction. So I think with my Arch Manning cards, I just want to let everybody know, if you're in situations where you have football cards, big football cards of top players, I think you need to ask yourself, who's the player? If they don't perform really well at the beginning of this football season, is there risk in holding the card? For a guy like Arch Manning, there might be, because if he doesn't play well, then his cards are going to go down. If he plays mid, then I don't know if his cards are going to go down. I just don't know if they're going to sell as well. If he plays anything over mid, they're probably going to skyrocket because he's Arch Manning. So I think if you have top tier pro quarterbacks, you probably don't need to switch them to an auction. If you have top tier position players or rookies from last year that still are riding potential hype waves from last year, you probably need to switch them to auctions. If they're not selling, if they're not top cards from the top card brands of the top players, you probably need to switch your football cards to auctions. So speaking of that, I had to do that. I said I think I've said consistently over the last several weeks on this show and on the premium pod that I was going to relist and switch my Shedeur Sanders CGC graded draft night cards to auctions. Well, I did that and I was right, because they pretty much all have bids. They all have multiple bids. They're all going to sell. They're all going to sell for a profit. Why? Because I said I was going to list them when he played in his preseason debut, and he played really well, Lefty. So let's talk about that. Let's get into your Browns and the 30-12 or 30, doesn't matter, 30-14, whatever it was, victory over the Carolina Panthers. Our guy Shedeur. Like, okay, let's not get excited about buying Shedeur cards. Let's get excited about this being a selling marker for the Shedeur cards. So I am liquidating all of my draft night cards. I was given in the VIP bag at the National, all of us were given a Shedeur Sanders card. Mine sold for $30 in an auction this week. Got paid for. It's time to sell Shedeur Sanders, right, Lefty?
Yeah, I mean, as a Browns fan, couldn't be more excited. He did exactly what I needed him to do. He came out and played like a quarterback. I think it was really important for him not to play like a running back. It was really important for him to actually get a good series underneath him, and he got over a half of football. Like we saw when we were watching the Hall of Fame game, they were making a real or Harbaugh made a real point about how the first half was good. We're going to have Trey Lance come out in the third quarter and come back out and see if it was just a good half or if he can build on what he had accomplished in the first half. And the Browns did the exact same thing with Shedeur. He came out in the third quarter. They put him in the ball game. He played another drive or two, and then they moved on to Huntley, I believe. And so which was also like a really cool thing to watch because he didn't play as well as Shedeur. I thought Shedeur was the best quarterback the Browns had in the game on Friday, which was really good to see. Not because he's a good buying opportunity. And I love how you said that already. This is just the fulfillment of a very good selling opportunity. I've been drip selling my draft night cards all the way to now, and I listed the last 4 I had of the draft night cards, or the last 5. I had 5 SGC 9.5s of the draft night cards. I listed them all on Saturday after the game because I wasn't able to list them before the game, and then luckily, he played well enough that those 5 cards are going to do well also. Plus, I don't know if it was on your email or not, but all of my SGC listings have come through, and they were not 60 days. It was in fact 30 days, 30 calendar days, much less than 65 working days of having this order completed, and ended up getting a pristine 10 Shedeur Sanders. So I'm really excited to see how that goes, considering we've been talking about, do we do these raw to grade strategies to CGC, considering there is a black label, quote unquote, CGC version. So I'm excited about that. All of that's about to hit my vault as well. So I'm going to get all of those out. And several of the other guys that we had in that grading slot was like Cam Ward played fine. I thought he did. Jackson Dart actually played really well too. So I know that a lot of people are saying, like, are we just talking Shedeur? No, he's our biggest purchase and who we've talked about historically, and that's why we're mentioning him in this segment. But there was other rookie quarterbacks that played really well in their first preseason debut. Jackson Dart, I thought, did very well, especially when you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston in that quarterback room. You would think he's third on that list right now, but he showed himself really prominently in that game. I never remember how to say his name, so I'm just going to call him the Saints quarterback. He came out and threw a real bad interception, but then threw a bomb in the next drive, and it was awesome. So I know people have the autos of his cards, that the RPS autos, or maybe it's the draft night autos. So I know we have some people that have some autos from him, and I would look to list those as well. And then Travis Hunter, Cam Ward. Even Genty played really well. So it's a good moment for us. We need to be selling these football cards.
Totally agree with you. I call him Tyler Shuck. What the shuck? I don't understand how they drafted him over Shedeur, but I'm still bitter about
several times.
It's just absolutely bitter. But anyway, yeah, good call on that. Wouldn't it be nice if there were a tool that you could just upload pictures of a card and it would tell you what it would grade and or what it would be worth in the future? We built one. It's the Card Analyzer and Predictor tool. You can get it only at nooffseason.com. Go premium, use the promo code no offseason to save 20% now. NoOffseason.com is also your number one place for finding the top sports card auctions. They're all eBay auctions, but we curate them for you. So if you're not sure what to search for on eBay to find the best cards, just visit NoOffseason.com and find our top sports card auctions page. Look, if you're confused by grading your cards with any of the grading companies, you can grade with us. Lefty and I were a little confused about something with not only PSA, but CGC this past week. So we're going to talk about that later in the show. Lefty kind of alluded to it a second ago. Grade with us at nooffseason.com. Send us your cards. We do the hard part, save you money. And you can select any of the 4 major grading companies: CGC, Beckett, PSA, SGC. We track your gem rate for you. You get a nice little dashboard. It's great. So we're going to get to that. Just a quick shout out to a lot of you in the live chat. We've got some regulars: Sergeant Slabs, Andrew McDade, Terry Anderson, Richard Villarreal. We got new ones: Red Zone Rips, what's up? Hobby Guys Co., Craig Signer. We've got Trophy Room Cards, Baseball Card Curmudgeon. A lot of you over on Instagram as well. I highly encourage you to obviously follow us on Instagram at Sports Card Strategy. But if you're trying to dial into the live stream on Instagram, it's definitely not as good on Instagram as it is on YouTube. So come on over to youtube.com/Paul Hickey to get that broadcast. But most of you are listening on Apple and Spotify, so I'll stop talking about that. Okay, let's get into our sports card rankings at nooffseason.com. Lefty and I each like to pick a card to talk about. And, you know, I've been asked a lot, like, you're only buying 5 players. Are you only going to talk about the 5 players? No, I think if you go through the library of shows from this year, you will find that I've talked about just about every relevant play that we could all possibly be making, definitely outside of my 5 players. And someone in the live chat has asked about that. We're going to get into, I'm going to preview my sports card strategy, buying strategy later on in the show for how I'm going to expand past my 5 players moving forward. But the guy that I really like, and I'm interested to Lefty's take on this, has my first name, Paul Skeens. He's 23. He's obviously one of the best pitchers on the planet. He has crazy strikeout numbers. Through 2 seasons in the bigs, he's 18-11 with a 1.95 ERA. And his 2023 Bowman Draft Chrome First Auto is a card that I made a lot of money on raw to grade. If you're familiar with the Sports Card Strategy Show, my biggest raw to grade plays in 2024 were with this card. I bought 2 of them. They both gemmed, and I made massive profits by selling them actually like when he was starting in the All-Star game as a rookie. But this card you can still make money on. So I like going back to the well on cards that I've done well on in the past and making more money on them. So I'm throwing it out there to all of you. You can buy this card, and if you can find it on eBay for the average cost in the last 30 days, $424.21. If you can afford to buy multiple of them that look gradable and average out the cost to around that 425 number, you've got massive upside in a PSA 10 still of 1330, and your return that you're likely to get across all grades that you're likely to get, which is why I say buying multiple makes sense, is $763.77. That's a 39% ROI on this card. So I love this. And Lefty, one thing I wanted to point out real quick is the reason I love buying into this card right now is two things. I think when you have a superstar like Paul Skeens, and there's a lot of other superstars that I think would fall into this category, and they're young, right? So they're full slate of cards that are investable sort of just stopped hitting the market, because he obviously started with the 2023 Bowman Draft, which is the card we're talking about, the base Chrome Auto first. But then since then, there have been tons of other investable Paul Skeens cards because he's such a superstar. Well, now that he's into his second season, really 99.9 repeating percent of Paul Skeens cards that hit the market for the rest of his career are not going to be investable. We're always going to go back to the ones like his first ones, right? And his first autos. So the reason I like that is because these cards have plateaued. This one in particular, it's pretty much plateaued, but it's also spiked, and it's spiked during different moments that Paul Skeens has had. We call those performance spikes. And so because its general average price has plateaued, meaning it's established a floor, but it's also spiked, I think it's a perfect card to buy raw to grade, because when you buy a card too early in the player's ecosystem of releases, you risk the PSA 10 price dropping by the time you get it back from grading. That shouldn't happen in these types of scenarios like I'm talking about with Paul Skeens. So this is a great example, I think, of a card that we could all go out and buy right now. We don't know how many of these are printed. It's not serial numbered out of 499. It's not the refractor auto. Like, you can go out and get this, right? I think that the toughest part obviously is going to be to go get it around the target cost and get a gradable copy. But I definitely love this play from a raw to grade standpoint. And obviously props to our sports card rankings at nooffseason.com that do the calculations for us. So Lefty, what do you think about the Paul Skeens play here? And then over to you for your cards that you like from our rankings.
I like the play here because, I'll just say it in a different way. The pop count here of the PSA 10s is not going to hurt you in this case. You are in the market cycle where the PSA 10s, people aren't looking at, and it's not a race to the bottom per se, as we've said. It's now like a established floor. So that's really cool. And that's something that is looking forward to. Plus, Paul Skeens market is not going to be determined by said pop count right now. It's going to be determined by his market. And as somebody's just asked in the comments, his attention, his market, his playability, his marketability. He's obviously in a very committed relationship with another superstar. So that plays into this. Plus, he's also phenomenal. Like more or less, he's also incredible, and so I think the Paul Skeens play here is a solid one because it's an auto that people are going to be looking after. And yes, it's the first over the RC Shield. I think the RC autos will go for less than the first Bowman Chrome autos, especially in the long term. I think the first Bowman Chromes the Bowman Chrome autos will be the ones that will want, or the Bowman Draft Chrome autos, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the language that I'm using. So I like this play. Paul Skeens is always a play that I'm encouraged to make, because until he shows otherwise, he's one of the best pitchers on the planet. And he's also super young. So, do you want me to jump into mine now?
Yeah, so you've picked a few here from our rankings, which means you really like our rankings at nooffseason.com, which is awesome. So walk everybody through what you got.
I like our rankings right now because there's a lot of established cards on there that we've been making for a long time. For instance, I think the Aaron Judge card I've talked about, I guess 3 or 4 shows in a row, is the number 1 card on our ranking right now. But this card is something I've talked about for as long as I think I've been on this show, which is cool because there's not very many cards or prospects or whatever or ideas that we had at the very beginning of the show that, like, 5 years ago, that are still like, hey, that was actually a good idea. So we have to hold on to the ones that feel like they're still a good idea. And Tiger Woods 2001 Upper Deck Base isn't a card that feels like it's a good idea. It's a good idea. And so statistically, it's good. But I wanted to just bring this up really briefly because this is a card that I'm always looking to move into. It's kind of like I wouldn't say it's a grail card for me, but it's a card that I very easily always have the money for. Like, I'm always like, boom, yeah, $20 at a time or something like that. I will buy this card. It doesn't matter. To me, even if a chopped and screwed version of this card, if it comes in and I'm like, hey, would you do $5 for this? I'd still probably buy it because of the marketability of this athlete. So the 2001 Tiger Woods Upper Deck, I would buy it if it was priced accordingly, even if it wasn't, perfect. But I ended up getting into what I thought was 9 very gem mint looking cards at the National with Paul. I was walking around, I was like, dude, look at these. There's 9 of them right here in front of me. I never get the opportunity to see, one, that many of them at once, and 2, that look really good. And so pulled them out of the guy's case. I was looking at him. He wanted 35 a piece, and the buying price that we have on our list here is 1880. So it's like we were way off in terms of a buy price. But the PSA 9 price here is 46. So the guy's pretty much at the PSA 9 price for a raw value of this card. So I started talking to him, and I wanted to buy all 9 of them, and I was willing to go down to $20 a piece. And the guy ended up saying, no, it's the first day of the show, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, Saturday, I went back and I said, how many does he have left, if he has any? And so he had 7 of them instead of 9. So I went back and I said, okay, you have 7 of them still. I'd be willing to pay $25 a piece for this card because I can buy 7 of them all at once. They all look pretty good. And he was like, I'll do 28 a piece. And I was like, pretty bummed that you had to squeeze me $3 more, but I would do that because still they looked really well, like really well centered, great corners, all that kind of thing. And I ended up going bigger than I wanted to on this, and I think this is why I wanted to bring this up. I had the opportunity to buy 7 of them at once, and I had eyeballs on them. So I was willing to pay over the price, knowing that the floor right now of this PSA 9 is 46.41, and where the PSA 10 is 2226.49. So the return on investment could be 72% right now if it hits a PSA 10, which these looked really, really good. So I'm expecting a couple of them to be PSA 10s, if not all of them to be PSA 10s. So I had the ability to buy into. I was able to pay strong, as some people like to say, on these cards because I was able to find really good copies, and I was able to buy 7 of them at once. Now, we talk about this being the target cost or the target price, and that we want to get down to, but sometimes I think it's important for us to talk about, like, I don't always buy at the exact target cost. Like, usually it's like that's a really good number to try to get to, or even under it if it's possible. But sometimes these cards are hard to find at that price, so we get them as close to that target price as possible. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about with that 2001. I remain to see. I've already sent them into PSA, so we will see what that play looks like. Joe's like, what if they're trimmed? And I was like, if they're trimmed, that's just the risk I'm willing to take. I'm not going to go into a situation thinking that somebody has altered these cards.
Hey, Lefty, before you move on to your next ones, I just want to talk about this real quick. So the audience, so this is the 2001 Upper Deck base number 1 card for Tiger Woods. And a couple thoughts here. Number 1, you're going to be $784 minimum into this grading play because of the grading fees and the price that you paid for the cards. So you're going to need 3 10s basically to get close to that number. 3 or 4 10s. You're going to need 4 10s or more to profit. That's just what my math tells me here. It's just so that everybody knows about this play. The other thing, the thing that I want everybody to understand too, is I think a lot of times people can get discouraged if they try to grade the same card over and over again and don't get the desired grade. And I think I want everybody to look at it as a learning experience, because this has happened to me where I've tried to grade a lot of Caitlin Clark cards this year. And at first I was getting bad grades on all of them, but then I figured out why I was getting bad grades. And so then I was able to flip that and win from my learnings on what to look for before buying the card. And so I think a lot of times people will buy the card at the target cost, regardless of whether or not it's going to grade well, and then get frustrated either if it doesn't grade well, or then they receive it and they don't think it's going to grade well. And I think we have so many different tools at nooffseason.com to help you determine whether or not you should buy the card. So think of it that way. Like, think of, and bringing this back to Lefty's story, it's like he was sitting there looking at the 7, feeling confident about how they were going to grade. And that's why he pulled the trigger. So just a little bit different. But okay, Lefty, over to you.
I do have a question. You said you were in the 700 realm?
Yeah, because what I did
math?
was you have 7 cards. So
Yeah.
7 times 28 is 196 for the cards. And then you have to grade each card. 7 times, I'm saying 21. Oh, yeah, you're right. I was way off. I don't know how I got to that number. So 7 times 21 is only $147. So 147 times 196, 343. So I don't know how I got 790 something when I should have gotten 343. So actually,
I was freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh.
if you get 2 PSA 10s, thank you for correcting me on that. If you get 2 PSA 10s, you are profiting. So 2 out of 7. Really, you just need a 28.5% gem rate. And so, yeah, so I like it.
That scared me,
for
bro.
the
I was
freak out.
like, oh my gosh.
Thank you for correcting
I was
me.
like,
Other
I'm
people
screwed.
probably yelling at their podcast apps right now too. So thanks for bringing us back to the accurate number there. Really like the play. Really like the play. I hate the dealer that made you pay $28 a card, but you felt like it was going to be a win based on all the factors we've discussed, and I like it.
I just couldn't leave 7 of them on the table. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, So.
And to Joe's point about them being trimmed, like, and many of you might yell at your phones for what I'm about to say also, but I mean, I think if you get, say, N6 designations, or you get like a PSA 5 or a PSA 6, I would just crack it out and sell it raw. So whatever you get that's lower than a 9, I would probably, and I would recommend to everybody, crack it out and sell it raw. So
Yeah, so the next couple of plays I have is based on me looking at the list and saying, okay, today, what should we be buying? Like, we're looking at the list, and all of our rankings are from a raw to grade strategy of a completing the play right now, 30-day, it's all into it. But if I have to go, okay, Kendall, you can't talk about the Aaron Judge again. You you can't, just go status quo every example. You've tried a couple of these. Which ones or would you be most excited to look into right now? And so then I think, okay, 90 days from today, and this is something I've been talking about with Paul over the last couple of episodes, and even in person when we were at the National. If you do 90 days from today of 65 working days, and then 30 days to try to acquire said cards, if you go 90 days from then, or 90 working days, we're almost at Christmas. So if I said, okay, if I start trying to acquire these cards today, I'll be getting out of them at Christmas time. And so what do I want to be getting out of at Christmas time? And I'm thinking basketball. I want to be getting out of basketball around that time to potentially flip back into basketball in early 2026. So I want to be using the in-season tournament as a selling marker for some of these basketball moves that I'm making. Hopefully that these two guys will be going into that tournament. So I looked at further down the list in the 30 realm, and the highest card that I have here is a return on investment of 30%. So 30, 29, and 26 are these cards. But 2 of them are Cade Cunningham's. We have a Cade Cunningham 2021 Optic Hollow 161. Target price of $14 with a PSA 10 evaluation of 131.25. So last sold is 131.25. And then with all that going, it's a 30% return on investment, including the PSA 9 price, which is lower than the other 2 cards. The other 2 cards I have here are a Cade Cunningham 2021 Prism Silver, and we know the Prism Silver is the card right now for the next year at least. And then Amin Thompson Prism Silver as well. Both of them are around a $49 buy-in opportunity raw. But Cade Cunningham is selling at $468 with a PSA 10. And Amin Thompson is incredibly low here, selling at $233 for a PSA 10. I think that could go crazy up from that scale right now. So for him to have a 26% ROI right now for that card, I think that's a smash buy for me, because I'm looking at these cards thinking there's no way it sells for $233 in a PSA 10 if the Rockets do and if he does what we're expecting him to do. Now, the fantastic part about this is the math works whether he gets better or not. That's what I wanted to bring to the table. Every time we talk about this, we have to reiterate this. The math works if he doesn't get any better. So like that's why I'm saying we can still make the plays on the list right now on the cards that are in and out of season, because the math still works. The math works right now for both of these cards, except for it works a little bit better in Cade Cunningham's case right now because he's played more basketball previously. Amen Thompson, I believe, will be able to have quite the year, and this card will be a lot more valuable in late fall, early winter. So those are the two cards I'm looking at. I think it's an incredible opportunity for us to buy into these cards now, expecting them to be higher or better in a better position in December to get out of these.
Yeah, great points all around there. We're not debating whether or not Amen Thompson or Cade Cunningham is going to get better at basketball. We're just recognizing there's a lot of hype around these guys. They've played good basketball up until this point. They sell very, very well. Cade Cunningham, I think, will be on like an MVP odds sheet heading into this year. And so whether or not they do get better, to your point, the math works from a raw to grade standpoint. So I absolutely love that. The other thing that I kind of want to throw out there is the 2021 releases. If you've ever tried to grade them either for basketball or football, they are a little tough. Like this, you might find a well-centered Cade Cunningham, optic hollow or prism silver left to right, but then it'll be off center top to bottom or vice versa. So just look out for that. Use our card analyzer and predictor centering tool at nooffseason.com. Once you chart your card, you have the ability to upload photos of it and use a centering tool that we have there for premium members. So that's a good way to start to understand whether or not these cards would be gradable. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up too is a lot of people might just say, well, Paul and Lefty, why wouldn't I just go buy an Amen Thompson Prism Silver PSA 10 for the $233.72? And to that I would say basically a different version of exactly what Lefty said. I would say if you buy a PSA 10, not only does Amen Thompson have to get better at basketball, but then the market has to care and respond to him getting better at basketball, which is a whole other thing. And then third, it has to do it to the extent that that card would go up to say 350 consistently for you to even start to make any net profit off of it after your marketplace fees. And when I say marketplace, I'm really referring to eBay. I'm not referring to like Facebook Marketplace or any other platform. I'm referring to the eBay Marketplace will take out fees, obviously, off of every transaction. And if you sell it at a card show or you try to, here's the other thing too. People might be listening to this going, hey, Paul, well, I'll just sell it at a card show or I'll just sell it on a Discord. Yeah, but what's going to happen? The buyer's going to want to buy it at like 80 to 85% of comps. Like who out there is paying full comps? If you can find that person, then just sell directly to them and don't use eBay. But I haven't been able to consistently find that person who wants to buy every single one of my cards for 100% of comps all the time. So I think that's the other thing to keep in mind is that if you're going to go buy a PSA 10 of any card that we talk about, you have to believe that there's a selling marker for that player that's going to be, over say 120%, 130% above what you're paying for that card. Now, you don't have to do that if you're going to go raw to grade, which is what Lefty and I are talking about. So good stuff there. Now, notice also, neither Lefty nor I were sitting here on August 11th when there's a lot of football hype in the NFL preseason. We just got done with NFL preseason week 1. We did not mention buying any football cards. Why is that? It's because the prices on football cards have risen and will be rising for probably the next month, right? Probably the next month they're going to rise and then they're going to fall into the typical mid-season dip, which usually starts to get to a buying window of sometimes late October, but more often than not, late November through late December is a great time to go out and buy a lot of the top football guys. So it's probably time to stop buying football cards right now because you can just get much better deals on them in November and December. If you're going to prospect on guys that you think are going to do well in the NFL playoffs this year, we highly recommend you wait until November and December. If you like the content on this show and want more, go premium at nooffseason.com now to get unlimited advice answered every week on our premium podcast. And whether or not you ask a question, it's still a great value. You get an extra podcast, the premium pod. So go premium at nooffseason.com. Use the promo code NOOFFSEASON to save 20% now. Okay, now the biggest thing that challenges Lefty and I every week is not every week, but every month, is our vintage play of the month. I kind of dread this every time it comes around. So does Lefty. And it's okay because now I have kind of a solution, and I'm just going to come out and say it. It's a little taboo. We've hit on it before, but death is a selling marker. And I've come out and I've said, hey, I understand if you don't want to prospect on someone's death and things like that. I get that. But if you have one-on-one conversations with anyone in the hobby that knows what they're doing, they will agree that this is a sports card strategy. They're a little less likely to agree on an Instagram post or an Instagram comments or something like that, but they are likely to agree. And I'm saying it publicly, that if you Google search or search up or whatever you want to call it, who are the oldest living baseball Hall of Famers, which is literally what I did in preparation for this show, and then you want to buy their cards, there's a good chance you could make some money. So what I did was I Googled who is the oldest living baseball Hall of Famer. The one that I think has the most appeal and the biggest market based on my research is Sandy Koufax. But before we get into Sandy Koufax, who's 88 years old, also, by the way, Bud Selig, 89, Bill Mazeroski, 87, Pat Gillick, 86, Orlando Cepeda, 86, Juan Marichal, 86, and Billy Williams, 86. Now, of course, someone can, unfortunately, we had Ryan Sandberg pass away in his 60s a couple weeks ago. That is tragic. Okay, death, whether it's expected or unexpected, is sad. However, it doesn't change the fact that when Ryan Sandberg passed away, his 1983 Topps PSA 10 increased by $571. His 1983 Fleer PSA 10 increased by $125. The BGS 9.5 of that card went up $100. The 83 Topps base SGC 9.5 went up $62. Look, Ryan Sandberg's cards are up huge in the last 30 days since he passed away. Is it unfortunate? Yes. Do people make money off of this? Yes. Dave Parker also passed away this year, a Hall of Famer. His 1974 Topps base SGC 8 is up $99.99 in the last 60 days. The PSA 8 of that card is up $64. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Pete Rose, unfortunately, passed away last year. Jerry West, Bill Russell passed away within the last few years. Okay. Like it or not, everybody, their cards went up huge in the 15 to 30 days after they passed away. So whether this is a moral question or not, I understand you might have a moral take on this, but Sandy Koufax, the card that I picked out for Sandy Koufax that I believe makes the most sense to buy would be his 1955 Topps base. Okay. Over the last 60 days, it's down $201 in an SGC 2.5. It's down $175 in a PSA 2, of which there is a pop 1009. His SGC 3.5 is down $163. So these are cards that have sold multiple times in the last 60 days, which means you can go find them. And oh, by the way, they're also down around $200. So am I rooting for Sandy Koufax to pass away? No. Do I know anything about the health status of Sandy Koufax? No. Do I know that he's a phenomenal Hall of Fame baseball pitcher? Yes, 100%. So to go out and buy his card, A, wouldn't be a bad idea anyway. But B, when he does pass away, you can count on probably a $200 increase on all of these cards. And if you bought them when they were $200 down, Lefty, I know my math was a little bit wonky earlier when I did a random calculator check on your grading submission. and you corrected me on it, but I'm pretty sure my math's pretty good on this one. Sandy Koufax. I haven't done this yet. We've talked about it on the Sports Card Strategy Show, but my vintage play of the month is looking at, based on age, who could pass away next that's a baseball Hall of Famer, and going and buying their card. Yes, I've done it, everyone. Love me or hate me. I'm helping you make money flipping sports cards.
Yeah, I think whether it's a funny little soundbite or not, or maybe not funny, maybe you don't think it's funny at all. To me, I think it's funny. I have a bit of a dark humor, and so when he's like, "Yeah, this is how old Sandy Koufax is, and the time is short." Nobody outlives death. Nobody, and so it's the one final selling marker for our guys. And so I have a comment in here by Sergeant Slabs talking about Hulk Hogan. I was already running numbers on Hulk Hogan to see over the past 30 days where he was when his market dipped, or when his market hit when he passed away. And I charted 5 or 6 of his cards, and all of them are up over 100% in the last 30 days. Like, so that's not it. And so you've got to keep looking at this as a viable strategy. And I think the tricky thing is here, Paul, is if you are to do this, let's walk through this. Let's walk through it. If you're going to do this, you're buying a Sandy Koufax card right now. You're probably listing it as a buy it now at a price that's higher than it is when you purchased it. When you see the information come in, do you put it on auction? Do you receive offers all of a sudden? Like, what do you do here? Let me get into the mind of Paul. Let me get my little fingies in there and tickle around.
This is right back up to how we started the show. So I love this. I mean, if I were to go out and buy one of those Sandy Koufax cards, and they are, the PSA 3, I think I spoke of, and the SGC 2.5, those cards are they're going to be around $1,000. I mean, they're not cheap. So what I would probably do is list them in a buy it now around, maybe $1,750 if I'm paying $1,000 for it. Depends what I buy it for. At the pop 1,009, I mean, if you're winning an auction, you might have a little bit more room than if you have to go kind of pay a little bit of a premium on a buy it now. So it depends what I pay for it, but I'd probably list it, I said basically the example I gave was like 75% over what I paid for it. So I'd probably do that to start, because Sandy Koufax is a well-known Hall of Famer with I would say a pretty wide fan base and market. You might get offers, right, that have nothing to do with anyone thinking about him passing away. But however, if and when he were the final, let's just call it this, when the final selling marker happens, I would switch it to an auction. That's
7 day.
Good. Probably 7 days. Yeah, because really we start to see all of the patterns that we've looked at. And again, this is not the first time we've talked about this. So we've looked at this data quite a bit. It does start to lose its luster after it gets out of the news cycle, which,
Right.
It gets out of the news cycle probably within 48 to 72 hours on something like this. So then you get, I definitely wouldn't extend it past the 7 days. So I that's a good question.
Yeah, so my 2 vintage, this obviously is something we stretch ourselves big time on, which is why in the next year, here's a little tidbit. We had our yearly buying goals earlier this year, and we've had some people ask about it in the live chat even today about what Paul's going to do next year. Well, what's Lefty going to do next year as well? Lefty is going to put at least one vintage person on his buying list. So I am going to move into a calculated, and I think I put on my notes, I put bordered buying opportunities. And so one of my bordered plays will be a vintage play. The 2 that I've been looking at pretty consistently are the guys that I wanted to talk about today in this segment. The 2 that I have put on here already passed their final selling marker. Let's just put it that way. I like the way we're putting it that way. Their final selling marker
Final
has
selling
passed.
market.
The final selling marker has passed for these two athletes, which I think also can be good because of the plateauness that we talked about in the Paul Skeens case, where the PSA 10 pop count is somewhat leveled off. After the final selling marker, you see a plateau, so you can make really strong cases for cracking slabs and switching to other companies that have a surplus on that particular grade. And, we talk about the crack 9 to 9.5 quite a bit, but in a vintage realm, it could be a crack from a 1 to a 1.5 in another company. So the thing that I've been looking at here is the first guy I want to talk about is Satchel Paige. The 53 Satchel Paige is a card that I've been looking at pretty consistently here. I like it. I think it's a really cool looking card. It's one of my favorites that I've been looking into. I wanted to personally get into a PSA 1 at the National, but I couldn't find a good price for it. I couldn't find one under $600, and the 557 is last sold. So I probably would have pulled trigger on that 600 now looking back at it, but I'm okay with it. The 53 Satchel Paige Tops, which is card number 220, I think it's just a really awesome card. It's a great guy. It's a guy that has historically been like such a big moniker for the Negro Leagues and how that has been integrated into Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame system and record keeping and all this kind of stuff. But Satchel also played in the major leagues and also was just like a larger than life character. I love this 53. He's actually in the St. Louis Browns uniform. I love this. But if you look at a PSA 1 versus an SGC 1, you can pretty historically go back and forth over a PSA 1 and a SGC 1, flipping them back and forth and potentially making flip trades along the way. But if you're able to trade up into an SGC 2, it almost like one and a halves basically. So I think that there's some plays to be made. And so I'm not fully like locked in on this specific play, but I think that there's stuff that I'll be looking at over the next calendar year that's really, really big on this specific market. We have two kind of vintage plays that I think me and Paul are leaning into. We have the final selling marker play, and then we have the crack and resubmit to different grading companies when you find one that's overvalued over another, when it's pretty like if you can make a good case of flipping them. So that's what I've been trying to look at with this Satchel Paige card. And another one I wanted to talk about is just Mickey Mantle in general. I almost said Mookie. Mookie's not vintage card yet, even though he's been in the league for quite a bit. But Mickey Mantle is a guy that I'm like 98% sure that I'm going to put him on my list for next year's buying opportunities. One, because he has so many cards that people buy and sell out in and out of. It's so crazy to me that you don't have to have a rookie card. You don't have to have the first card. I mean, the 66 mantles and the 68 mantles, those are still selling at a premium. And I think it's because the pop count, who he is, because he's a granddaddy of the hobby. I mean, it's like Mickey Mantle and King Griffey Jr., LeBron, Michael Jordan, and Tiger Woods. Like they're all in that era together. And I think Mickey is in a different classification because he's a different era from those guys. Like the 52 mantle outside of the Wagner card, that's the T204 or something like that.
T206.
Yeah, the 206. This card is like pretty much the hobby's card.
Yeah.
And so Mickey himself, I think there's going to be really awesome opportunities to do some flipping back and forth between grading opportunities.
Love to hear Lefty getting involved in the vintage. That's going to be fun. Are you ready to start grading your cards? CGC Cards is the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC Cards is the perfect stop for your grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today. All right, I'm excited to kind of talk real quick about a preview of my upcoming sports card strategy, how it's going to evolve from my 5 players into something else. And again, just a bit of a recap as to why I did my 5 players. I felt like I needed to go on a bit of a diet. Sometimes when you go on a diet, you get leaner and then you get stronger and you make gains, right? So I feel like that's actually exactly what I've done this year. The 5+2, as I'm calling it, because I did Cooper Flag and Shedeur Sanders draft night plays. It's gone really well for me. So
And
going on a
Santa. Can't
narrow
forget
diet.
Santa.
Well, yeah, Santa. I already shed my Santa weight, so but it's helped a lot because the reason I wanted to do it is to narrow my focus, and the reason I wanted to narrow my focus is because I felt like I could get to be an actual subject matter expert on a particular set of cards, and by doing that, I could be better at grading them and be more selective at buying them when they weren't gradable and understanding what an actual selling marker is rather than just kind of spraying and praying. And so I think I might have used this analogy in person when we were at the National, but it's definitely like, I think being more of a sniper than it is maybe using a weapon like that would just spray shrapnel everywhere. You know what I mean? And I think
Blunderbuss, if you will.
I'm not a weapons kind of guy. Just take my word for it. But I think that's the analogy here. So, so going on a narrow diet has helped. I think the right mix of risk mitigation and upside. It's given me the ability to clearly analyze what kinds of plays work best. So again, raw to grade, crack and sell raw, crack and submit, the print on demand to grade, all those different things. So what am I going to do next? Well, what does a doctor recommend after you kind of go on a diet because you have a bit of a stomach ache? They recommend just slowly adding in foods to see whether or not you can stay healthy, get healthy, stay lean, all that good stuff. So now that I cut out a bunch of foods and I'm feeling healthy, I'm going to slowly add back in foods, sports cards in this case. And that's what I plan on doing. So I'm not going to just all of a sudden pick a new 5 players. I'm not just going to all of a sudden expand to 10. I'm not just going to all of a sudden do something, that is as extreme as only picking 5 players like what I did last year. But what I'm going to do is, since this has worked, buying these 5 players has worked. Okay. Shohei Ohtani, Caitlin Clark, Victor Wembanyama, Michael Jordan, Arch Manning. I am going to start adding in other players along with them. And I will say, I don't think buying Arch Manning necessarily is going to be smart over the next year, possibly even 2 years. I think if he does have Panini Instant draft nights or Tops Now draft nights or whatever, right? Those would be plays like I did for Cooper Flag and Shedeur Sanders that I would do with Arch Manning. But so if I'm going to weed out buying any of the 5 that I've bought so far this year, it would be Arch Manning. But I'm going to continue to look at opportunities of buying the other 4 and adding in players like LeBron James, Anthony Edwards, possibly Luka and Steph Curry, Jaden Daniels, possibly Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, but not until the midseason dip that I talked about earlier. Possibly guys like Ellie De La Cruz and Paul Skeens. Now, do I want to stay lean? Yes. Did you hear any real going out on a limb there? No. Right? So I think that it's important to remember what's worked for me. And what's worked for me has been buying highly desirable, easy to sell, high-priced athletes. And that's kind of what I'm looking at adding in. I think another huge thing that I've learned in this past year, I've always known about it, but Lefty and I kind of talked about this in person at the National. I really want to look at what Lefty talked about earlier in his raw to grade strategy. When we went through the sports card ranking segment of this show a few minutes ago, Lefty made a point about buying those Cade Cunningham and Amen Thompson cards now because it's August, and he would get them back before a particular selling marker that he thinks will be good. That's what I want to do more of intentionally moving forward. So instead of just looking at a particular athlete's cards in the raw to grade rankings and understanding, okay, if I buy this, there's upside. in the PSA 10 or the bulk play. I want to only allow myself to buy the particular guys that make sense to be at PSA for a few months, right? So right now that would be, to Lefty's point earlier, basketball. And I want to do that throughout the year. So that would be possibly football in the January, February buying season for the guys who got eliminated from the playoffs, or it could even be June if you wanted to do, if PSA speeds up their turnaround time, or you wanted to do the 20-day turnaround time. So I think timing the market is going to be something that I try to get better at. Baseball, trying to get baseball cards back in March. So maybe the November, December buying window of baseball would be good. Remember that nooffseason.com is the only place on the planet with sports card rankings updated in real time, sorted by the ROI percentage you're likely to make in the future. Now, when you click on each card in our rankings, it takes you to auctions ending soonest for that card. Lefty, we're about to get into a segment that I think will clarify some things, some questions that you had. So possibly our audience was thinking of them as well. But do you have any thoughts on what I just talked about with my strategy before we get into how to get your grading submissions to move faster?
I'm excited. I think it's not as I guess like clickbaity that you're like, okay, I'm adding more. I think this guy only buys 5 cards. It's like super like that's crazy, but I think this is a smart play too. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to with my version of this as well, is like, I've watched you be more disciplined. I've watched the lean activity. One of my favorite books that I read in business school was the lean startup, and something called a minimum viable product. And so you basically boiled it down to say, how can I do this at the minimum level to succeed, and then build from there. And that's a great attitude to have, a great strategy to have. So I'm excited to see where this next stage takes you.
Thanks, brother. All right. So how to get your grading submissions to move faster. There's 2 little things here that came up in the last week, clarifying the main difference between CGC value and CGC economy submissions. So Lefty and I have talked pretty much all year about, CGC being able to turn card submissions around faster. And he and I both individually made submissions to CGC over the last week with the Cooper Flag Tops Now draft night card. That was mine anyway. And so I wanted to I said on last week's show, I think I wanted to get 25 of them to CGC to get them back faster. But then if you were to go make a bulk submission, technically CGC's bulk submission at $14 a card is a 65-day turnaround time. However, the economy submission, which is at $17 a card, is the one that turns around faster, closer to 30 days. So I've basically, I don't think we've been inaccurate. I just think we've referred to CGC having a 30-day turnaround time. We've referred to a $14 price point bulk. But really, if you want that turnaround time, it's time to be very specific with you all. It's got to be the economy level. So as we have submitted more cards to CGC, we've realized this. And CGC and same with other grading companies. Like, once you submit, you can't really change it. So you gotta know that going into the submission. Another thing that came up was on the premium pod. I want to play this. This is our QA of the month, pulled from the premium pod, and it has to do with clarifying PSA's sort of recent announcement about PSA value and PSA value bulk, because there is a difference. And you kind of see, I stumble over myself a little bit when I answer this on the premium pod, because I kind of realize it as I'm answering the question. So I'm going to play this video and then we can talk about it. With PSA update recently that the value submissions will take 45 days and value bulk will take 65 days. Do you think it is worth paying the extra $5 to get to the market quicker on a play like the Cooper Flag, Panini Instant, and Tops Now? Let's go to psacard.com and just try to see what the actual numbers would be here, because this is a good question. Yeah, so this is why I like to verify this kind of stuff. So I mean, When I log into my PSA account, this is what I see. I see value plus is still 20 business days. That's $39.99 a card. Now, of course, you got to add the shipping. Like the shipping on top of that is pretty expensive for them to ship it back to you. So if you're only submitting one card, that might not be economical unless it's a big card. But if you're going to ship, say, 10 Cooper Flag cards, the shipping becomes more economical, but then the grading becomes less economical. So that's the dilemma there. Now you do get it back in 20 business days. Okay. The value bulk is 65 business days, and that's $19.99 a card. The value, which is what you're talking about, is $24.99, 45 business days. So this is a great question. So again, the value bulk, you need a 20 item minimum. The value, you don't need a minimum, and you're supposedly going to get it back 20 days quicker. And that's probably why you're getting it back 20 days quicker, because you don't need a minimum, and it's $24.99 a card. Now, this goes back to an earlier grading question we had. What should I do if I have less than 20 cards? I said, send them into us. You could also do this if you're a PSA member. If you're not a PSA member, you're still going to, well, either way, you're still going to save a little bit of money because our shipping, you're not going to pay the return shipping. You're still going to get charged for the return shipping. So you're still probably going to save money if you send them to us. Going to get them back around the same time. But this is an option. This is a valid option where you could go value and spend. And I see what Andrew's saying. It's only $5 more a card. And in theory, you're getting them back 20 business days faster. So in that case, yes. And I will revise what I said earlier. Instead of value bulk with the Cooper Flag, you could consider value. However, here's my final answer after working this all out. I don't know that you need the cards back in 45 days. I think you can get them back in 60 days, and it's still in line for a great selling marker. I would err on the saving $5 a card, because that adds up throughout your 20, 40, 60 cards. It eats into your profit margin. Profit margin is everything on these cards. So it ends up, I think, being a wash to be 20 days, maybe 20 days faster to the market, but paying extra is going to eat into your profit margin. It's debatable. They're both viable options. I would go value bulk. A lot of different options there. And thanks to our premium member, Andrew, for asking that question on the premium pod. A lot of great stuff on the premium pod. But Lefty, where do you sort of stand on this? Because it's like, I could see some scenarios where just going value would make sense to get cards back 20 days quicker from PSA. I just don't know if the Cooper Flag 20 days with the draft night cards makes sense. And certainly it's going to be on a card by card basis, but what's your thought on this?
Totally usable. I think that's what I'm going to say is usable. And something that definitely could play into a strategy for us. Also, another thing for the value versus value bulk is what I didn't realize is when you submit something as value, you don't have to submit 20.
Yeah.
So for instance, I submitted one at the value price, and so it's like, because it was a card that I don't need for a long time, and it was 24 or whatever dollars to get that submitted. I think in my head, I didn't realize that the value bulk was 20 card minimum, but the value is no minimum, and so that's something as well, that even though we do this all the time, it's still relearning some of the aspects you've been blind to already. So I think in regards to the CGC play, though, I do think it's something that I will use every time. I'm way more willing to pay $3
more a card. Yeah.
$3 more for a card that's going to come back with, it's going to come back faster than a month, and so I'm way more willing to pay $17 versus 25 for a card that I know is going to come back really quickly. Um, I would also be like really like curious about you were selling your Coopers at CGC and SGC at one point, right? Do you have the data from how they've sold differently? Like maybe not off the top of your head, but it may be in next week's episode.
I actually haven't graded anything at SGC. I've sent Cooper flag cards recently to the Topps draft night. I've sent 11 to BGS, 25 to CGC, and 25 to PSA.
Cool.
Yeah, I have not. I've graded cards for premium members with SGC, like with whatever they pick or whatever sometimes if it falls in line, I'll give a little bit of strategy around what I think they should do. But for the most part, they know what they're doing. And I have submitted cards to SGC for premium members. But I think the last SGC submission I made personally was like sometime in 2023. So it's been CGC and PSA for me since then. Looks like CGC Cards, who's, it's your favorite place to slab your favorite sports cards, according to our sponsor read that we read every show. They do have a 25% off sports card grading right now. So go to cgccards.com and check that out. So, Lefty, do you have anything else you want to add for today's ep before we hit him with the outro and just wish you all the best sports card strategies for the next week before we see you again next Monday?
No, I mean, I think the vintage play is going to be really exciting for us over the next year, I think. So encouraged to keep learning.
Thanks for listening, learning, and earning with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll see you guys again soon. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. If you enjoyed the content on today's show, there's plenty more waiting for you at nooffseason.com. Just go to nooffseason.com right now. You get our formula-based sports card rankings, sports card school, inventory tracker, the ability to grade with us, and the premium podcast where we answer an unlimited amount of your questions. Check it out right now at nooffseason.com. For everyone at nooffseason.com, I'm Paul Hickey. Thanks again for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day.